Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Well, what we have here is just a typical sample of democratic rule, destroying cities, destroying states, what have you, and there is a lot of evidence to back this up. It seems that Seattle is finally reaching its typical own democratic destruction, its own collapse, considering the fact that it is not doing well. It's at a massive tax deficit along with many other Democratic states, and it's going to get worse. What we have here, the Post Millennial, saying Seattle mayor reveals $47 million payroll tax deficit as companies flee the Emerald City. Last week, the mayor of Seattle announced that the Emerald City collected $47 million less in payroll taxes last year as large companies continue to flee the liberal oasis. According to the Seattle Times, the mayor and Seattle City Council expected the tax to haul in over $400 million in revenue from the tax, but instead, the city brought in only $360 million in 2024. The $47 million payroll tax deficit adds to a $260 million budget deficit. Seattle was already facing from out of control spending. On Tuesday, Mayor Bruce Harrell said in a joint statement with Council member Dan Strauss, today's announcement that payroll expense tax revenues collected in 2024 were $47 million lower than the projected required action to ensure our budget remains balanced. Now, here, guys, I want you guys to see something here that is quite obvious. It says here from out of control spending. Now, this is a common theme and a common theme with the Democratic Party in general. They spend, and they lead into massive deficits later down the road. This is a common thing with the Democratic Party. Now, what does it mean exactly with, in terms of, what could be this out of control spending or what have you? Like, what's the nuances or what is the deep down of this? Well, a lot of it could be where Democratic people are stealing the money. That happens a lot in California. And they're pocketing the money, or organizations or what have you are using the money, or they're spending it undeniably, right? That's some of the reasons why some of the out of control spending would be going here. Because time and time again, we see this be a consistent issue. It goes on to say that the statement continued, we also know this news only adds to significant negative impact for the future years when the combined with President Trump's actions to be recent grants to our city, implement harmful tariffs, and focus on failed economic policies that prioritize the wealthy over working families. That's not what's going on here. Trump is not doing that. But it's because of your guys' own failed city. Because Trump doesn't cause your city to collapse, right? Trump wasn't even in office for 40 years, so you could only blame yourselves on why your city or why your state is in complete hellhole, why it's going in a downward drain. You can't blame Trump for this. You can't blame that removing grants, maybe because you are not wanting to remove illegals from your city, which is causing crime and one of the other things, and we're making people leave. So you only have your own actions to blame here. And the tariffs are going to be a net benefit in the long run. It's not probably won't be a good benefit now, but a net benefit in the long run. Since President Trump has threatened to defund so-called sanctuary cities like Seattle that fail to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. Well, yeah, because you should. You do not want illegal immigrants in your country. I'm going to be making another video at some point too, where the Democrats were pretty much leading the way and proving that they wanted to use the illegal immigrants and all these other people to be voting and doing all these other things in the Democratic Party here, because they needed the votes to stay in power and have a full control blue state, a blue country where Democrats would never lose again. That was the Democrats' mantra. That's what they were doing. However, that's not what's going on now. Because they've been stopped at this, and Trump's probably going to continue this from the long road. So the statement continued, we also know this news only adds to significant. Okay, well, I read this, and then we have this here in 2018. The city council, led by Marxist council member Kashima Swant, passed the so-called head tax on the payrolls of large companies to fund affordable housing. After businesses, including Amazon, threatened to leave the city, the council relented. However, in 2020, the tax was rebranded to the Jumpstart Tax and passed by the council. At the time, someone said by Amazon tax was the beginning of ending racist gentrification in Seattle and created the thousands of working people unions socialists for passing the measure. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? You said we're not going to do this. You did because your big multi-billion-dollar company was leaving. Then you're like, okay, we're going to make a bait and switch and do this and do the same thing, just call it something different. And then it passed. And then of course, this is a problem. And then of course, as always, by the common mantra, you guys use racism as your toolkit, as trying to tug to people's emotions to say this is the reason why we're doing this. And this is a common thing with Democrats. Listen to what they say and look what it's trying to make you feel. They say racism. This is a thing to make you feel some type of way towards black people, right? Or white people. They say transphobic. Well, this is another way to make you feel a certain way towards people. Or say you're a Marxist, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi. These are all emotional tugging points to make you seem to back off, so they make you feel like you don't want to be part of this group. It's a typical point with these Democratic people. They always use these key terms to make you feel a certain way, so that way you can stop pushing this thing because you don't want to be called that. So this is not surprising that they're doing this route here. Council members estimated the tax would bring in about $250 million a year, and though the projection was surpassed the last 2 years, businesses, including Amazon, began moving to the other nearby cities, including Bellevue. Last month, Expedia announced it would cut 1,500 jobs after a year of layoffs. Harrell admitted that in the statement that the businesses are fleeing his progressive city, adding in the statement, "We know this decrease in revenue and is aligned with recent reports of major employers moving thousands of high-paying jobs out of Seattle to other cities in our region." Yet he still supported the tax, claiming large corporations should pay their fair share, and we should be wary when they use job replacements to avoid funding that our communities rely on. But we also must recognize businesses will make choices based on their bottom line. We need to design our tax policies with the full context of our economy and a comprehensive review that ensures we raise the revenue we need to support all our residents in a progressive way, aligned with our values. Now, Democrats in the Washington legislature are considering enacting their own version of the tax to reduce their own $50 billion budget deficit. Many fear the new tax, which will chase corporations out of the evergreen state, and average citizens will be left holding the bag for the legislature's out-of-control spending. All right. So I'm going to go over a few things, but before I do, I'm going to explain what's going on here, right, in terms of what we have. So let me put it this way. Companies are our lifeblood, all right? The reason why companies are our lifeblood is because they supply jobs. They supply jobs to the people that do not have the money to make a company, or does not have enough money to, or just not there yet to do anything with the said company. And companies pay people. They pay the millions to hundreds of millions of people that just do not have companies. And they give them a wage. Now, when these companies have to make ends meet, right? They have to go even, preferably they have to make profit in order to stay afloat. And if they have to pay taxes, well, depending on how high the taxes are or what have you, then they will either leave or stay. In this case, the companies are obviously not making a profit or going even. They're in a deficit. So a company can only lose so much money for a certain period of time until they have to start making moves to start making money. So when they are being taxed so much to where they can't reliably fund or keep people in these places because they're just not making their ends meet, they're not making profit, then they're going to leave because they're not making their bottom line. They're not making their ends meet. So when you are saying you want to keep this tax thing in place, you're pretty much just saying, please, companies, leave. Please leave our state, leave our city, because they're not going to stay here if they can't make ends meet. And so many times that these Democrats are doing this, say we need to tax the rich. Well, the rich are supplying the companies, you fools. So if you tax them too much, they're going to leave. And if you make it at a broader scale, where you make it to federally, right, where the federal tax is so high, where companies cannot make ends meet, they will just leave your country, and then they will go to another country to go to where they can make actually ends meet and make profit. And then, therefore, when these people leave this place, leave that country, or leave the city, guess what? People cannot be able to survive, or they are going to be fired, and it hurts your country, it hurts your state because people cannot be hired, they're laid off, and they can't make money, and it hurts the economy of everything else, right? So that's just the reality of it. That's just what you have to deal with. So when you go and attack these companies and say, oh, we got to make it better for everyone, well, guess what? It doesn't work, all right? Because you are causing massive issues within the company itself. And people are leaving, and you now don't have people that can be paid to boost your economy, to keep your economy at a good state. That's pretty much it. It's really not that hard. I'm not very strong in economics at all, and even I realize this. So again, we have this from Ari Hoffman saying, remember when unions engaged citizens warned the Seattle Council that if they pass a tax on employees, companies would leave Seattle? Projects just did it anyway. Companies left, and Seattle has an additional $47 million deficit on top of the $250 million they already knew about.
No head tax! 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 No head tax!
Can I make an appeal to my brothers in the...
No!
Yeah. So again, and then we have this here. We're not going to watch it. Seattle implemented a Marxist idea to tax jobs. Companies moved to other cities, revenue dried up, and the city's deficit grew. The Democrat-controlled Washington legislature is considering the same idea. Amazon, Boeing, and other companies will leave, and we will have killed our golden geese. Yeah. So it ain't good. And then we have this here from Chris Daniels. Seattle reports payroll tax revenues have dropped $47 million below projections as businesses leave town. Olympia lawmakers now pitching similar statewide bill to close shortfall. Goes on to say here that statements from Mayor Bruce Harrell and Budget Chair Jan Strauss on 2024 year-end revenue report. Okay, it says today's announcement that pet revenues collected in 2024 were $27 million lower than the projection requires to action to ensure that our budget remains balanced. We also know this news only adds to a significant negative impact for future years when combined with President Trump's actions to rescind grants to our city, implement harmful tariffs, and focus on failed economic policies that prioritize the wealthy over working families. Faced with a significant deficit, our 2025 budget nonetheless made historic investments in affordable housing and keeping all the shelter beds open, maintained critical public safety spending, and funded essential services and supports to build thriving, healthy communities. Our budget proposal was designed based on the projections of the Independent Office of Economic and Revenue Forecast and sought to create a $43 million payroll expenses tax reserve, recognizing that this revenue source is subject to significant fluctuation. But it seems like it doesn't work out because it says we know this decrease in revenue is aligned with recent reports of major employers moving thousands of high-paying jobs out of Seattle to other cities in our region. And then, of course, this is just the problem, right? And this is not just a Seattle problem, right? Okay, this is not just a Seattle problem. Of course, it has this here from CNBC. It says many large cities are in deep financial trouble. Here's why. So again, I'm not going to tell you the here why part, but I'm going to tell you which cities are in actual financial trouble. So it says here, for example, New York City had a total public debt of $177.6 billion at the end of fiscal year 2022. According to researchers at Truth in Accounting, a nonprofit that partners with the University of Denver to promote transparency in public accounting, that translates to a per capita taxpayer burden of $61,000 according to the group's analysis. And then you have here where, again, discrepancy is another issue, where the Truth in Accounting estimates that 53 of the largest cities in the U.S. were not generating enough revenue to pay their bills at the end of the fiscal year. 53 cities, all right? Majority of these are Democratic run, all right? The list also highlights fiscal challenges facing cities like Chicago, Houston, and Portland, Oregon. I think we all can agree that we're broke, Houston Saber said John Whitmer in March 2024 City Council budget hearing. And it goes on. Like, this is a problem here. These cities are in complete downfall. And then we're not going to talk about on how California is also too. As the figure shows, in addition to the $68 billion budget problem we have identified for 2024 and 2025, the state faces an annual operating deficits of around $30 billion per year. State has two constitutional reserves with formula-driven requirements. So, again here, guys, if California bails out LA's $1 billion budget deficit, beware the slippery slope. Because that's LA. So, guys, these cities, these states are in complete downfall. Let's do the Oakland deficit right here. Oakland budget deficit, right at the top. And then it says Oakland is a pivotal moment as city leaders work to address a significant budget shortfall of 129 million this year. With an additional 280 million project over the next 2 years, Oakland leadership shall further companies its challenges. So, guys, these states, these cities are in complete and utter collapse. They're in downfall. Democrats do not know how to run these cities. They do not know how to run anything. And as we see here, these cities are collapsing. They're in massive deficits. So when are we going to start saying, "Oh, Republicans are the issues"? No, the Democrats are the issues. They're the ones that are causing the problems. They're the ones that are causing these massive deficits. And so until people start realizing that these Democratic cities are actually a hellhole, and I should highly suggest get out of Democratic cities in order for your own benefit, so that way you just don't collapse under itself, right? This is just the reality here, and this is no different what's going on. So Seattle is just just another Democratic city that is collapsing, and it's going to continue to happen until things start fixing themselves up. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share. As always, take care, my friends.